There's a product in your refrigerator that's destroying your knees right now. You eat it almost every day. Perhaps you ate it this morning. And worst part, you were probably told it's healthy. I've worked 30 years as orthopedic surgeon, and only last 10 years I started understanding connection between what we eat and joint health. What I discovered shocked me. And today I'll tell you about this product that's one of main hidden enemies of your knees. But before I name it, let me tell you a story. 2 years ago, a woman came to me, let's call her Elena, 53 years old. Pain in both knees tormented her almost a year. She'd already gone through usual cycle, anti-inflammatory drugs, physical therapy, injections. Nothing helped long term. MRI showed moderate degenerative changes, but nothing catastrophic. I conducted my usual functional examination, checked biomechanics, muscle strength, movement patterns. Everything was imperfect, but not bad enough to explain such intense pain. Then I started asking questions about her lifestyle. Sleep, stress, activity, everything seemed relatively normal. Then I asked about nutrition, and here it started clearing up. Elena considered herself a healthy person. She didn't eat fast food, didn't drink soda, cooked at home. But when we started breaking down her diet in detail, I noticed pattern. Breakfast, yogurt with granola, snack, cheese. Lunch often included dairy soup or something with sour cream. Afternoon snack, again, yogurt or cottage cheese. Dinner, often dish with cheese. She consumed dairy products 4 to 5 times daily. But dairy products are healthy, right? She asked. And I heard in her voice, same thing I'd heard from hundreds of other patients. We're all taught that milk is good for bones, that we need calcium, that dairy products are foundation of healthy eating. And yes, for some people, dairy products work perfectly fine, but for many others, especially with joint pain, they become source of chronic inflammation. Here's what happens. Dairy products contain several components that can cause problems. First is casein, milk's main protein. In significant portion of adult population, casein can provoke inflammatory reaction in body. This isn't classic allergy with immediate symptoms like rash or swelling. This is low-level chronic inflammation you don't notice directly, but which accumulates in body and manifests as joint pain, especially in weight-bearing joints like knees. Second component is lactose, milk sugar. Most adults worldwide have some degree of lactose intolerance. Their body doesn't produce enough lactase enzyme to digest lactose. When undigested lactose enters intestine, it causes intestinal wall inflammation. And intestinal inflammation isn't local problem. It activates systemic inflammatory response spreading throughout body, including joints. Third factor is what happens to modern dairy products during production. Cows often receive growth hormones and antibiotics. Milk is pasteurized and homogenized, changing protein and fat structure. All this creates product our body doesn't always recognize as friendly and may react with inflammation. I propose Elena an experiment. Completely eliminate all dairy products for 4 weeks. Completely. No milk, cheese, yogurt, cottage cheese, sour cream, butter. She looked at me skeptically. 4 weeks without dairy will heal my knees after a year of pain? I said, I'm not promising miracle, but if dairy products cause chronic inflammation and we remove them, inflammation should decrease. Let's just try. She agreed, though reluctantly. First week was hard. She didn't know what to eat, felt restricted. But second week, she called me. Doctor, I'm not sure. Maybe it's coincidence, but pain decreased slightly. Not much, but noticeably. Third week, even more improvement. By end of fourth week, she came to my office with broad smile. Pain decreased about 70%. I can't believe it. Was it really dairy products? We decided to test. She reintroduced dairy products into diet. 3 days later, pain returned. Not as strong as before, but definitely returned. This was her answer. For her body, dairy products were inflammation trigger manifesting as knee pain. Elena isn't unique. After this case, I started paying more attention to nutrition of my chronic joint pain patients. and I started noticing pattern. Many who didn't respond to standard treatment consumed large amounts of dairy products. I started offering them same experiment, 4 weeks without dairy. And you know what? About 40% had significant improvement. 40% is huge number. Now, important point. I'm not saying dairy products are bad for everyone. I'm not saying they're cause of all knee problems, but I'm saying for a significant portion of people, dairy products are a hidden source of chronic inflammation, aggravating joint pain. And most people don't even suspect this connection because nobody tells them about it. Why don't doctors talk about this more often? Several reasons. First, nutrition isn't main focus of medical education. I studied 6 years in medical school and got maybe 2 lectures about nutrition. Doctors are taught to diagnose diseases and prescribe treatment, medications, procedures, surgeries, not change diet. Second, connection between nutrition and joint inflammation isn't as direct and immediate as, say, connection between bacterial infection and antibiotic. This requires time, observation, experimentation. In system of 10-minute appointments, there's no room for this. Third, dairy industry is very powerful. For decades, it promoted idea that milk is necessary for bone health, that we should drink it every day. This idea is so deeply rooted in public consciousness that even suggestion dairy products could be harmful is met skeptically. But science is starting to show different picture. More and more research links dairy products with inflammation, especially in people with joint problems. Interestingly, in cultures that traditionally consume little dairy, many Asian countries, for example, levels of osteoporosis and arthritis were historically lower than in Western countries with high milk consumption. This is paradox that makes you think maybe milk isn't as necessary for bones as we were told. Maybe calcium can be obtained from other sources, green, leafy vegetables, nuts, seeds, without inflammatory effect of dairy products. So what to do with this information? First, don't panic and don't rush to extremes. If you have no joint pain, if you feel good consuming dairy products, perhaps they work perfectly for you. But if you have chronic knee pain or other joint pain, if standard treatment doesn't give long-term results, if you consume dairy products regularly, worth trying experiment. 4 weeks without dairy products. None at all. This means reading labels because dairy ingredients hide in many processed products. This means finding alternatives, plant milk, nut cheeses, coconut yogurt. First week will be unusual. Maybe you'll miss your favorite products, but give your body a chance to show you if there's difference. Keep diary. Record pain level daily on scale from 1 to 10. Note when pain is stronger, when weaker. After 4 weeks, look at dynamics. If pain significantly decreased, you have your answer. Dairy products were part of problem. If nothing changed, dairy products probably aren't your trigger, and you can return them to diet. Some people discover not all dairy products equally affect them. For example, hard cheese may cause fewer problems than milk because during aging, lactose breaks down and proteins partially decompose. Or fermented dairy products tolerate better because bacteria already partially digested lactose. Some find they can consume dairy products occasionally without problems, but daily consumption causes inflammation. Elena, I told you about now, lives without daily dairy products for 2 years. Sometimes she allows herself a piece of good cheese at celebration, but daily yogurts and cottage cheese are in past, and her knees feel better than last 5 years. She still does her strengthening exercises, watches biomechanics, but eliminating inflammatory trigger from nutrition was key element of her recovery. I don't want to demonize dairy products. For some people, they're part of balanced diet and cause no problems. But I want you to know that if your knees hurt, if treatment doesn't help, maybe cause lies not in joint itself, but in your refrigerator. In that white product you considered healthy and safe. In dairy products that for your specific body may be source of chronic inflammation. Your body is smart. It sends you signals. Pain is signal. But sometimes to understand signal, you need to change something and see what happens. Remove variable and look at result. It's just experiment. 4 weeks of your life. What do you lose trying? And what you might gain is possibility to live without pain that tormented you for months or years. Isn't that worth trying?